For all those who don't know, Cody Sanchez has been a longtime client of mine. We do all our paid advertising, and she invited me to come and speak. She came here to go to Miami, Florida, and she had a mastermind there down the road at one of these hotels. She wanted me to come and talk. Fun fact, this actually blew my mind. There was a lady there who sold cow feed to farmers with a bunch of cattle. Made more than $100 million a year. Made me feel like an idiot, you know? Like a lady can peddle $100+ million in cow feed. I should be able to peddle $100+ million in high-ticket products and services. That's how I felt. But anyway, I digress. There was also another guy there that did more than $100 million in logistics. Like he ran like some kind of large, I think it was like a combination of things. He had trucking, and he had some kind of like distribution partnership with a local fucking port to wherever the guy lived. I think out in Texas. Anyway, long story short, I put these people on game to a bunch of random lessons from helping scale businesses up to $1 million months per usual. So moral of the story, if you're new to the channel, that's all we ever talk about, hitting $1 million months, pass down the lessons of people that have been there, done that. No income claims, no earning potential. Not saying you're gonna watch these types of videos and make a fuckload of money or make some buku bucks, not gonna happen. All we talk about is just the lessons of the people that have been there, done that. So without further ado, if you're already a subscriber to the channel, welcome back, always a pleasure to have you. Let's jump in to some specific clips that we've pulled and strung together for you to help put you onto some game today. Without further ado, enjoy. Okay, we're gonna focus on the front end for this part of the conversation. All right? Has anybody here ever run a lead form? That strategy right there is an example. When you look at lead forms specifically, that's typically a good volume play, but it brings in a very low intent. I just did this video the other week. I called it the S tier list, where I was ranking the funnels that had the highest probability to work for the majority of people who try them. And I love lead forms so much, but they are typically, for most organizations, a very, very ineffective strategy, solely as a result of their sales teams not being straight up killers, just unbelievably hungry, high desire salespeople that are willing to do whatever it takes to close deals. And to your point, like it's a very low friction process. And as a result of it being low friction, we get a lot more people through, but they come through lower intent. Okay? In comparison, we have very high friction funnels comparatively. Can I give you guys a great example? Think of this real quick with me. What's a perfect example of a really high friction funnel?
This one where you had to apply an interview and
Yeah.
qualify.
But did I make you buy anything before you bought this? So is there higher friction than that? Do you know what I had to do to buy this? They made me buy two that I didn't want before I could buy that I did want.
Yeah.
You know how silly that is?
Yeah.
I remember I walked into the Manhattan, so there's a watch brand called Vacheron Constantine. I walk into the Vacheron Constantine boutique in Manhattan. I say, I know how the game works. I want to buy a overseas, is the specific model. I say, I want to get the perpetual calendar one. I want to do the all rose gold one, but I know you're not going to sell it to me. I know you got to go upstairs and get some random watches for me to buy. Preferably they're men's watches and not women's watches. Okay, I'd like to buy one for me if I got to buy one. Go ahead and go grab them. This man was so happy that I knew how it worked. He goes upstairs, comes back and brings me 3 of the most old man watches I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, how much are these? He said, this one's 40 grand, this one's 50 grand, this one's like 45 grand. And I was like, well, I like that one better than the other ones, you know? Can you throw at least a black strap on it? And he was like, yeah, I can do that. And then I go, all right, I guess I'll check out for that one. So I leave with that watch, okay? And then he goes, by the way, it'll be way faster than you think to get the one that you actually want. And I'm thinking he means like a couple months. This dude calls me a week later and sells me a $108,000 watch, the one that I wanted, sends it to me in an armored truck down here in Miami. It's really cool to get an armored truck. Comes in a giant blue tart bag, and the guy gives you like a security code you got to tell him to be able to get it to drop off. And anyway, point I'm trying to make is, yeah, that's pretty high friction, right?
Yeah.
To even know the game in the first place, how deep in the game am I?
Yeah.
You know, wow, unreal. And you know what, that watch, unfortunately for me, didn't even resell for more than what I actually bought it for. It was a very disappointing lesson, you know, very disappointing lesson. But a high friction lesson nonetheless. So it's like, listen to this, right? Sometimes we want to make people buy stuff first because it leads to a higher probability that they buy the next thing after. Do you know what would have happened if I didn't buy the $108,000 watch?
You would have made $40,000 on a list.
Would I have stayed on the list?
Or would you have been on a, no, you would have been on a new list, a don't sell to list.
That's exactly right. There's all kinds of people that do these really, really high friction funnels. And the point of them is obvious, especially at that level. But what about at our levels? What about where it has more applicability to us? So, have you guys ever heard of a challenge funnel? You know what that is? So listen to this. You make somebody buy something. It's a ticket to a virtual event. The price of this virtual event might be like $70, $90, and there might even be some upsells on the back end after they buy it. What do you say? So watch this. So you go about $70 to $90 on the ticket price for it. Okay? Now why would I want thousands of people to buy before I allow them to come to my 3-day virtual event where I'm going to sell them anyway on stuff? If you got information and then you got information that you paid for, so information you didn't pay for and information you paid for, which one are you going to take more seriously? Which one are you going to pay more attention to? So it's like I'm essentially getting you to pay more attention. You understand? So in that example, if I get you to even pay tens of dollars, like a $70 to $90 range, it's like, what do you think my show rate's going to be for that 3-day event if I charge for it versus if I don't charge for it?
Higher.
How much higher? Typically with these challenge funnels, these virtual events, they can range from like 10 to 20% for a show rate if they're free, and the show rate diminishes each day because it's usually a multi-day event. If I get somebody to pay, my show rates on average are 70+%. So 30% of people, I call it the fruits and vegetables analogy. Listen to this. If I charge too little, like fruits and vegetables, and they go bad, and I throw them away, do you even really care about that? How many of y'all have thrown away fruits and vegetables in your lifetime that you bought, they sat in your fridge, and you threw them away? You know, one time, I'll never forget this. I got targeted by an ad that was for an olive-fed A5 Kobe beef straight from Kobe, Japan. It came with a certificate that showed that it was only fed olives its whole life, that it had a massage every day for multiple hours a day to help ingrain the fat throughout those good, lean muscle. The marbling was insane. The taste was of a nice olive. How much do you think that was for a little ribeye? Not even a thick one, just a little thin one. How much do you think I paid for that? It's $500. It shows up at my door. How fast do you think I ate the olive-fed Kobe beef? It came frozen. I thawed that thing out instantly upon opening the box. It was cooked within an hour. And unfortunately, the fat content was so high it gave me a migraine, so I wouldn't recommend it. I paid enough. That thing's not going to sit in my fridge. It didn't last. As soon as it showed up in the box, it didn't even see the fridge. You know? Those fruits and vegetables, though, I don't pay enough, so I just throw them away when they go bad. I don't even prioritize eating them because I charge too little to take it serious. Does that make sense? So listen to this, right? Back to the challenge funnel, this virtual event. 70 to 90 bucks is enough for 70% of people to take it seriously. 30% of people, it's fruits and vegetables. Does that make sense? I could arguably charge more money and increase my show rate as a result of that 30% discrepancy. Does that make sense? But if I give it away for free, I only get 10 to 20% of people that consume it. Like, I'm sure you guys all have a ton of shit you could go and do right now. Okay, I'm sure you do. I'm sure you have many open revenue-driven cycles that you could go actively participate in currently. But you set aside the weekend to be here. Why? Because you paid. You paid. And in this case, what you paid for is also a revenue-driven action. I'll tell you so many times over, you'd be truly at a very low level of business, if you can't take a fraction of what we've communicated here today and make more, a lot more than what you've spent. You know, the one thing that, remember that guy I said that went from a 36% show rate to a 74% show rate and made 178 grand? That was within his first month of paying me $5K. He was gonna pay me $60K for the year. He made it back in under 2 weeks. You know what got him that result?
Action?
Charging for showing up?
Only the confirmation page videos. He didn't do anything else. He'd only been in there for 2 weeks. Most of you sitting here right now will go and take action on the confirmation page videos. I bet most of you sitting here will take action on the value-dense email sequences. Do you think people on YouTube who watch something like that, what do you think the rate of the quantity of people there? How many people that watch it do you think will take action on it? Small quantity, right? You know, I did a podcast with a day, just on Wednesday, I think, Wednesday or Tuesday, I did this podcast. It's an hour and 37 minutes. Talked about some of the same concepts. You know, I'm sitting there talking about it. I just wonder, I'm like, I wonder how many people are actually going to do this. And obviously there's a difference in how articulate I'll be when I do something for free in comparison to the people that pay. I'll always be much more articulate. But the concept, right? Like you could hear the concept of a breakout video. You're all smart people. You could probably be rather conclusive about what you need to do to at least put that idea together and take an action on it, right? It's like I constantly give the example when I bring that up for free, where I say things like, oh, do the dispute video and do the video where you Google yourself, you know, and like walk through that. Give frame to the reviews, you know? But it's like in the confirmation page SOP, I give obviously much more. Here's my point. Show rates are typically lower when things are free or lower intent. So when there's less friction, our show rates are a lot worse, our buyer intent is a lot worse. That's why lead forms are at the top of the low friction process. Low friction also equals low intent. High friction equals high intent. You understand? I want to make sure that I balance these two though, because what's also important to understand is the more friction that I add, the less people come out the other side of it. The less friction that I add, far more people come out the other side of it. But again, the intention of the lead is dramatically different. But I got to balance the two, right? I can't just do one or the other. So like I said, I run all Cody's paid ads. And as you were saying, you had gone through our challenge funnel, it sounds like. And it also sounds like you bought this through the challenge funnel. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, now think about this. At the same time that we get to run this, you know how many times a year I get to run this challenge funnel for Cody? We've done it once this year so far. I get to run it a second time. You know why I only get to run it twice?
Too good of a response?
It actually was a phenomenal response, to be clear, but it's also extremely high effort. It's very time consuming. You can't do that very often, right? It's not like a very scalable, repeatable process. So it's not only high friction for the people we're selling to, it's also high friction for the people executing it. You get what I mean? Now, I'm not going to say Cody's numbers specifically on this, but I will tell you, we have a guy right now. He's spending $1 million on a challenge funnel. He'll probably expect to make somewhere between like 6 and 8 million off of that ad spend he invests. So it's what we call a lump sum play, okay? Not all high friction funnels are lump sum plays, but funnels like that, that's a lump sum play. In comparison, lead forms at the totally opposite end of the spectrum. Very low friction, very low intent. I'm just getting what's called daily lead flow in that example. Am I probable to make big lump sums off that? I guess if I charge enough, I could. If I'm making $500,000 a sale, sure, I could. But at the same time, I'm much more probable to just get daily deals from that. What we want to do is we want to find a healthy balance between our lead gen systems. So we have daily lead flow that provides supplemental daily cash. And I want to find lump sum plays as well that can help me produce significant sums of cash at any given time that typically have more friction. I'd say right in the middle ground of this little spectrum are webinars. And not just, I want to be very clear when I say this, you could technically do this in multiple ways. You could do paid webinars, which you wouldn't frame as a webinar. You'd frame it as a master class, a training, a workshop. You could get people to literally pay to still attend a webinar. And again, I'm still going to get all the profound effects I articulated here. that would move it a little further down the friction spectrum, right? And I could do free webinars, and that moves it a little higher on the spectrum. On average, I typically like to tell people, when you do cold paid advertising, meaning people who have no idea who you are, okay, and you advertise to folks that have zero idea if you're valuable or not, most of the time you're just articulating problem-solution scenarios, trying to find the in-market demographics, and I do a free webinar, I'm gonna average about a 10 to 15% show rate for that. So if I get higher than that, that's phenomenal. That's generally indicative that I have either tapped into a market of people that have a strong demand for what I'm talking about, or it means I'm like potentially one of the very few people that's ever actually communicated that problem solution scenario to them. And therefore I also have a high probability to get really phenomenal statistics. Like you mentioned as an example, you advertised long ago and you saw better statistics with that funnel. And then as time went on, it kind of degraded a bit. Competitors may have entered the space, sophistication might have increased in the market. It's like stats generally diminish through time as competition increases and as consumers become more aware. Does that make sense? Like, what do you think his probability is of going through a challenge funnel and buying a $30,000 offer again is now that he's fully aware of it? Sophisticated enough to know it on the back end too. He would just have to be self-aware and willful. Yeah. But it's like the awareness changes the dynamic completely. Does that make sense? Yeah. Point is, webinars are right in this in-between window here, especially free webinars, where I have to get somebody to still dedicate about, how long are webinars on average? Like an hour to 3 hours, give or take? It's like, I generally tell people to do about 90 minutes. No more, no less, especially to richer demographics. But it's like, the people who show up, do you have 100% retention by the end of the webinar? No, people drop off, right? Again, so that represents friction, represents a time commitment, but that additional time spent is why the lead can show up with higher intent when they go to book a call or buy. Does that make sense? So think about it on this spectrum of friction and compare this same exact friction spectrum with all these lead magnets we'll talk about with intent. The higher the friction, the higher intent. The lower the friction, the lower intent. Now, I also want to map a few for you here that I think are really good. Number 4 is low ticket to high ticket. So we mentioned at the very beginning of all this in our first session here today, I had asked you point blank, I had said, would you ever buy something like this at $30,000 if I made you buy Cody's book first? And your answer was no. No, I wouldn't have bought the book first. I'm a direct buyer in this case. I'd rather just buy this. Think about this though. How many people would not immediately spend what you've chosen to spend to be here today and would have preferred to transact at a lower dollar value first before ascending?
Well, this one was actually a little out of ordinary for me because I did Tom's stuff.
Hope you're enjoying the video so far. This is very, I'd consider it like surface level work, even compared to all the other things that we talk about on this channel. There's a tremendous amount of value that I constantly discuss. A lot of these lessons are centric around back-end selling systems, content-first ad strategies, scaled marketing lessons, scaled sales lessons, and just business lessons in general. So again, if you're new to the channel, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you being here. If you're already a subscriber, of course, welcome back. Always a pleasure to have you as well. You already know the deal. We talk at the highest level off YouTube inside of my paid programs, specifically 2 of them that you can find links for down in the description. We have Jeremy's Inner Circle, and then we also have Master Internet Marketing. Jeremy's Inner Circle is for people that are already rich, trying to get a fuckload richer. Twice a month one-on-one calls, weekly group calls. You can pick the topics, by the way. You can encourage me to do a specific topic, and we'll happily make it if it's applicable to everybody inside of the group there. In addition to that, we have a giant course library full of all of those past weekly group calls, all our historical mastermind talks, and a ton of other training from me. And we help tailor what specifically you might need to know relative to the current bottlenecks and problems and things that are holding you back from making a fuckload more money. So we put you on game to the specifics. Large SOP library as well, very well organized. I think we have a little over 30 SOPs currently that go in depth on a lot of the ad strategies, selling systems, things like that we discuss. We also include access to Jeremy AI. You get unlimited access in the Inner Circle. You get limited access in the Master Internet Marketing program. We also do our quarterly in-person masterminds. We do them right here in good old Miami, Florida. You're welcome to come to those. We do them upwards of 4 times a year. Outside of that, group chat full of rich people trying to get a hell of a lot richer. Most guys join into that already doing a couple $100K a month. We have some guys join in there that are already doing $1 million, look to get to their next $1 million a month. And of course, we got my flagship program, Master Internet Marketing. $5K, one-time price, lifetime access. That's the current going rate for that bad boy. Get in while it's hot. We have 7 weeks of very in-depth, it's a very intense program. It's the equivalent of like a fire hose of information coming at you, because in those 7 weeks, each live class comes out to be like 3 to 5 hours a piece. Large homework library in between, full of a tremendous amount of training videos, SOPs, very active, vibrant community. Again, full of people that are trying to get a lot richer. All kinds of people join into the Master Internet Marketing offer, whether it's somebody trying to train their staff, somebody who's trying to train themselves, business owners that are trying to train themselves, agency owners that are trying to skill up, marketers that are just trying to get better at what they do. And people range from straight up beginners, and they get talked to at the highest level. Like, we don't do that stuff where we like fucking baby people and like talk to them like a novice. Like, we just talk to you immediately like you're an expert. You gotta trust yourself being in that program to be able to acclimate quickly to the level of information that we discussed there. But yeah, again, tremendous program. You can find a link and a preview down in the description of this video and any other video of mine. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. All right, that's it. Sorry for the interruption. Enjoy the rest of the video. Talk soon.
Where I paid $400 to be in the community, and then I paid $5,000 for some sort of mastermind, 6-week mastermind or whatever. The $30,000, the only reason I did is it literally spoke to the problem I was solving in that moment, and I was like, could see a path to what I was trying to solve. But normally I would never spend that much.
So normally your ascension path would be low ticket to high ticket. So think about this. Reflect on your own buying patterns. Consider what you've done, as she just became self-aware of now, of articulating this concept of, I generally don't do this, I generally do that instead. And try to consider, it's like, as an example, you have med spas. Does everybody come in and just buy your higher ticket package first? Do you typically just advertise your higher ticket things on the front end exclusively? What do people buy in most instances before they ever buy something more expensive?
Botox is the most frequent.
How much is Botox?
About $400 a session.
So if you get somebody in for $400 on Botox, what percentage of those customers that buy Botox upsell to something that's more costly than that?
Maybe about half.
So 50%. Would that 50% have ever bought the more costly thing without buying the Botox first?
Yeah, through awareness.
Probably some of them, yeah. And then some of them would just be like, well, no, I mean, I didn't trust you yet. Injecting a neurotoxin into my face, you know? It's like, I'm gonna have you do that first before I do whatever else, you know? Just think about this. It's like low ticket to high ticket comes in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes it's as simple as a consult, where you go in person for some dollars first before they commit to that grand project that you want them to commit to. You understand? People generally want, in most instances, to have that experience first prior to just going straight for the high ticket thing. Now here's a crazy thing, and I'll tell you, it damn near never works. It'd be probably down here on the friction spectrum. Just driving traffic straight to a sales page for a $30,000 offer. You think that works? Anybody ever pulled that one off? No? So some things are too high friction to where they don't stand a fucking chance to get a conversion. Okay, so we can go too far on the spectrum as well. Does that make sense? And vice versa up here. Who here nowadays does lead magnets, where you give something away for free and then it eventually leads to a sale? How's that work?
Not very good, but we're gonna redo it.
Now, I want to be fair in saying, like, there was a period of time, and there's still, I want to be very fair in saying, like, there's a minority of people I know that can run a lead magnet and still see success with it on converting somebody to a sale. But nowadays, it's like marketing changes. It's like that day and age where it used to be like a majority, where you could just give some stuff away and it could work. That's diminished a lot and or changed. Like, technically, we get a tremendous amount of people that purchase from our YouTube channel. That's technically free. You could argue it's a lead magnet. You know, but it's not. It's YouTube. You know, you could just argue it's a lead magnet. Lead magnets, in my opinion, are like up here on the low friction spectrum right now. In the context of what I'm communicating to you here, I'm talking about a short term, before our credit card bill is due, we make far more money than the credit card that we owe. How long do you think it's going to take for me to capture that individual with the 10 free book recommendation and convert him into her lowest ticket, higher ticket product of 10K?
3 to 4 months.
Yeah, it's like you think that she wants to endure that duration of time. It's like, and there might still be a cost. I don't know where you saw that specific lead form that you mentioned with the 10 free book. But it's like, yeah, I'm not paying money to distribute that to people. That's probably just something that you saw organically out there in the wild where there's no cost to distribute it. So in that example, it's like we can endure, that 3 to 6 month window because there's no cost to it. But when we talk about things that have costs, here's what every single person I've ever worked with gives a fuck about. They want to be able to front cash and make the cash back before that Amex bill hits. So when you look at this spectrum, and again, you look at the lead magnets specifically in this context, it's like, sure, I can get somebody to start watching my YouTube content. I have some people that say it takes some months and months and months of consumption before they eventually pull the trigger on something. And it's a minority of people that pull the trigger. It's like, can I endure that? Well, yeah, it's free. There's no cost to it. But it's like, if I fronted cash to distribute that content with the intention of getting a conversion, all of a sudden the game changes dramatically. Here's what we have to ultimately conclude to and find out. What mix? What's the perfect combination for you? Okay? Because let me ask you this. If you only had one thing that you could do, it's like there's a lot of volatility to it. There's some things you can't do more than once or twice in a year. There's some things you could do weekly. There's some things that'll bring in a tremendous amount of daily lead flow that are still worth running because they supplement real-time cash and have a within the credit card billing cycle positive ROAS. Does that make sense? I have to find what my balance is. And I realistically don't just want to rely on one. I have a client right now, they run a call funnel. And a call funnel in this case has an application and a scheduler. It's relatively low friction. There's a VSL on the page, so I'll drive them from a paid ad over to something that has a headline, a little VSL, a video that sells them on stuff, and then an application to fill out. That's relatively low friction, because all I need people to do, the friction is the application and the call scheduler. So it's higher friction than a lead form, because I have to get them to do more stuff. I have to get them to click off of the page to the ad. I have to get them from the ad to the page. I have to ideally get them to watch some of the video. And then from there, I have to get them to apply and schedule. So again, higher friction than a lead form. I have a client right now. He does kind of what you do, just a little more profitably. With his call funnel, he'll get about a front-end cash collected of about 1.4 to 1.7, give or take the specific traffic channel. So Facebook for him does about 1.7x on profitability within that first 30 days. Google's about a 1.4. TikTok, give or take the time of the month, can be below a 1 or slightly above a 1. Usually averages out around like a 1.1 or 1.2. But the webinar that he does is at about a 3 to a 5x in terms of his profit margin. Means he puts $1 in, he gets $3 to $5 back out. When you blend those two together, he ends up at a little higher than a 2 for the month on the total amount of dollars that he fronted versus the total amount of dollars that he gets back. He would suffer a lot in real time. That guy makes about 1.4 to like 1.7 mil a month currently, just from the call funnel. When we introduced the webinar, I told him, I said, I really want to get this webinar going for the sole purpose that your blended profitability is likely going to be far higher and we'll be able to front cash more successfully as a result of having a higher profit margin. We'll be able to scale faster. Because here's the thing. If I'm at a 1.4 ROAS or a 1.7 ROAS, that's solely based off of deducting my ad spend from what I grossed. I then have sales commissions I have to take against that. In his case, he pays 20% to his closers. Gross. He also then has the cost of all the other expenses of the business against that revenue. He's lucky to break even net. Lucky to break even. Some months he has to front cash. His real cash flow, when it was solely based on the call funnel, comes from all that compounding recurring revenue from people who closed that didn't pay in full and were on payment plans until the webinar. When the webinar came along, that immediately was at a 3 to 1 ROAS. Now let me just ask you a simple question based on that data I just provided. Which funnel could scale faster? Why?
One to many. It's a cost. You're gonna have to.
There's more cost that I can sacrifice towards growth with the webinar because the margin's higher. Nobody ever does math on factoring in the cost of growth. You understand why are your webinars and workshops, why you only got, how many people you say? 50? 15?
50.
Why don't you have 1,000?
Yeah.
What's your margin on that? You front $1, how many dollars you getting back? What's your return on ad spend?
1,000, I get 6,000.
So you have a 6 to 1 ROAS.
Yeah.
How much are you siphoning of that into the scale?
Yeah, about 35% goes in.
So you'll take 35%, siphon it back into the ad dollars to make that go bigger the next time.
Yeah, I can't. I haven't thought of it like this at all. But
And so this is where most businesses, this is where they really miss the mark. It's called cost of growth. Okay? So in the call funnel example that I provided with that gentleman, a 1.4 to a 1.7, that's just on ad dollars in terms of the ROAS. Then we got to siphon off commissions and all the other business expenses. Honestly, we're arguably left with maybe 0.1 or 0.2, you know, in terms of the ROAS we got left in that example. And if you siphon that towards the cost of growth to scale it up, it's like he's left with pretty much nothing. What's the point of scaling up if you're left with nothing after you scale up? I guess some businesses out there argue that, but those aren't the types of businesses I'm sure we're all trying to run, right? I don't like that. I don't like doing it that way. The webinar model at being a 3 to 1 ROAS for him. So again, puts $1 in, gets $3 back in his return on ad spend. Okay, after all of the expenses in that example, he might be left with 1.5. You know, he could siphon off, a full 0.5 of that ROAS, whatever that amount of dollars comes out to towards reinvestment into the ad spend. That becomes his scaling math. And when he blends the two together, because the call funnel's phenomenal, that's what got him to the point where he was at 1.4 to 1.7 mil a month. When I found that guy, he was at 100K a month. Took him about a year and a half to get up to 1.4 mil a month. Phenomenal business, a 15K offer and a 25K offer initially and a 5K drop sell. He helps people stop drinking alcohol. He's got a great business model. But let me be really clear when I say this. It's like once he got to the scale of 1.4 to 1.7, it kind of stalled out. Why did it stall out? No, because we didn't have any more money to sacrifice towards cost of growth. That's all. What do you think scaled it to that point? We had higher margins. And those higher margins afforded us to be able to sacrifice a percentage of that total profit towards reinvestment into the ad dollars to make the number bigger. And then after we got the number bigger, here's the cool thing. What he literally nets off of that funnel is still far more than what he would have net when he was at a small level. So it's still worth scaling and shrinking the margin. But now the business can't scale nearly as fast because of the margin.
needs another offering.
He needs another funnel. He needed something else to work into the system. So again, we picked a webinar. Again, webinar got to 3 to 1. You blend the two together, he was at about a 2 to 1. All of a sudden, business is taking off again. He's on pace to clear about 2.1 this month. Why? Well, it wasn't random. More people didn't just all of a sudden say, hey, I want to buy this month. We were able to sacrifice more dollars from the profit into scaling to be able to make a bigger number. You understand? Okay? I don't want just one, I want many. All right? I want many. Like as an example, why aren't you doing a call funnel? Right? Call funnels have tremendous effectiveness, especially when you incorporate what we talked about in that first session. You know all those back-end selling systems? You notice how I framed a lot of them around call funnels specifically? It's because call funnels, although yes, they're a low friction funnel, I can decouple intent from friction with information. So I can take somebody on a lower friction funnel and through getting them a fuckload more info, I can increase intent. You understand? So if I take somebody through a call funnel where I'm arguable to get a great cost per call, and I just, before the call occurs, I just load them up. I have a really good chance to get that funnel profitable and working well. Right? On average, we see about a 3 to 5 ROAS from call funnels. The worst ones that are a little below average, like I said, are in like the high 1s or even in the 2s. they're typically really good to incorporate. We like them a lot. If you had a webinar in this instance that's successful, but that's really the only funnel that you got, it's very easy to justify a call funnel because generally the justification to be single funneled, okay, to be a one-legged stool. You know why the chairs you're sitting on right now are stable and y'all haven't fallen off? Because they got 4 legs on them that keep you locked into the ground. You know, imagine all of you were sitting on a one-legged stool. This is a one-legged stool, but look how wide that base is. Any of y'all had trouble sleeping at night from your single funnel business? Having some rough months, some rough weeks, some rough days? One-legged stools are wobbly. They're not as secure. They have a lot more risk. We can't run a scaled business while we scale a tremendous amount of risk at the same time from being single funneled. Does that make sense? Yeah. Oh, anyway, moral of the story is it's very simple. Like in your example, you run a webinar, you likely do that because you're like, man, when I get people to go through the webinar, they have a much higher probability to buy because they consumed all that information before the call. But it's like, again, you could take all the concepts that we talked about in that first session with the back-end selling systems and easily justify multiple funnels. You can even arguably take some of the higher friction examples like low ticket to high ticket, maybe even your own instance of a challenge funnel with this 3-day event, but probably not. Most realistically, low ticket to high ticket. And you could work in more than one of these because now you understand the premise. The friction is created based on how easy it is to fill something out, or the fact they have to buy something first, or the fact they have to schedule time, or as simple as the fact that they just have to apply and then schedule. What gets the person to convert and have a higher intent is what? Somebody say the word. Information, there it is. I was hopeful that you'd all scream it out at the same time, but it is what it is. We got some work to do. Okay, very good. Anybody got questions on this? Good? Okay, cool. It's an absolute pleasure to talk with y'all here today. I'll be hanging around for a bit. Thank you guys for listening to me. Yeah, talk soon. Yeah, so this specific group, I mean, it was such a wide range of people. I remember at one point somebody in the room asked me what a pixel was. And then I was like, you don't know what a pixel is? And this ended up being one of the ladies that was doing $100+ million selling, I mean, no shit, she doesn't know what a pixel is. She's selling cattle feed to cattle farmers, you know? She didn't need to know what a pixel was. But anyway, due to the fact there was such a wide range of people in there, I had to discuss things at, honestly, like a pretty different level compared to how I normally talk. I generally talk to people like you that already know a lot about the game and are trying to get put onto the next level of the game. So if you enjoy this type of content, fantastic. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, talk soon.